Hi everyone, so great and really excited to have with me Kiah Williams today, who is a raw foodie that I know you guys need to meet. And so hi Kiah, nice to have you on the call.
Hi Andrea.
So I got a few questions for you. You're calling from up in beautiful far north Queensland in Cairns. I've just had a little virtual tour of your house, and you've been telling me about all the wildlife that lives outside, all the native Australian fauna, and you live in this absolutely stunning part of the world in this completely timber tree house or something like that. Is that right?
Well, it is. It is a tree house because there's no walls inside, and because I'm high set,
yeah,
it makes you feel like you're in the trees. I mean, the jungle is all the way around me, so
wow.
You can get a bit claustrophobic in wet season, but at this time of year, it's absolute paradise.
I can imagine anywhere would be a bit claustrophobic in wet season up there. It wouldn't really matter where you lived. But certainly a beautiful environment for a raw vegan to live, because you are surrounded by all this amazing fruit. I don't know if you actually have trees on your property that grow fruit. What do you have there that...
Yeah. Well, I've got pawpaw, pineapple, mango, and bananas.
Wow.
And just a few veggies. But the veggies is challenging to grow because when you're in the rainforest, you have so many animals that are living with you. So good luck with green. Bush turkeys and all sorts of, everybody's got them, but. And so I kind of just, whatever's left over, I might fossick. But I've really gone into a lot of the weed, wild harvesting of weeds,
right.
And I've got stuff growing everywhere that I've just had put in years ago, like different forms of spinach. And so I just picked those as well.
Wonderful.
But mainly, I would never be able to feed myself with the fruit that I grow on this property because I'm in the jungle and it's very hard to keep this, enough sun.
Right.
But I can certainly get a few. I had 20 pineapples last year. Which
wow, that's pretty good.
And I'm just about to cut another bunch of bananas.
Yeah. And in any case, you have the most amazing markets up there with locally grown tropical fruit from all over the place. So
sure, yeah.
I'm sure it's all pretty cheap as well. So tell me, how long have you been eating raw? And tell us a little bit about why you came to raw foods in the first place. I know a little bit about your history. I know that you're a bodybuilder and that you've done some that you've been into the fitness kind of world. But was that what brought you into it, or was it health issues? Just just give us a bit of your story.
Yeah, well, no, it wasn't. I mean, going raw was another step that I made, but years ago, about 20 years ago, over 20 years ago, I made that transition into eating properly and differently for healing my body. I had Crohn's disease, a peptic ulcer all at the same time. I was a single mum going through divorce, and I thought I was going to die. So I knew I had to change my approach toward living and my approach toward eating and thinking. And so that's the journey I went on. But it wasn't raw because back then I wasn't really thinking raw. I was just thinking get rid of processed food and try eating, so I started doing not bodybuilding, but body shaping, and from really it was a mind thing. I really had to change my mind, get rid of stress in my life, and then learn to communicate with my body to learn what it needed to heal itself. So that's where I started. And then gradually, as I got better and better, I just kept food diaries, I kept meditating, I kept exercising. I started with weights and got myself stronger, and then eventually in a few years I went on to do competition figure shape classes and competition. So that's how I started to heal myself. But go on 20 years, I was always eating raw and I was always eating healthy, what I perceived as healthy. And this is the thing with most people, they think they're eating healthy, just because they're having a, fairly balanced diet with quite a bit of junk, but they still think that it kind of evens out. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's this perception that you think you're eating healthy. I was eating healthy enough to heal myself, but I wasn't eating as in healthy enough to, continually get better and, fine-tune.
And I suppose as you get older, your body needs probably more nutrition than as a young woman. Yeah.
So then, fast forward to 20 years later, even though eating organic all that time as well, I wasn't unhealthy at all. I was, ticking along quite well, but I was in a relationship with my partner, and he got very sick and lost 20 kilos very quickly, and we didn't know why, and the doctors couldn't work out what was wrong. So I said, look, I think we'll just go completely organic, completely raw, and that's that. So got rid of all coffee, everything. It was 100% raw, but it was gourmet raw because that was the transition. And so we did that for 5 years, 100%. And within a year, he healed himself completely.
Wow.
Yeah, it turned out it was an abscess up in his gum that he couldn't feel because he had a tooth removed, and he had a nerve he couldn't feel the nerves up there. The nerves had gone, but the poison was going down to his stomach and making him sick all the time. So that's why the doctors couldn't find what was going on.
Oh, wow.
But anyway, in the process, what happened for me was I was going through menopause. So I was eating raw, going through menopause, plus my dad was dying. So I had a very stressful time, but the raw food, in fact, I was just doing it for him. I was really doing it for my partner.
Yeah.
What happened was it got me through menopause like that.
Wow.
I just like, gone, done.
Didn't even notice it.
Never noticed it. Well, it started off before it was raw. I was kind of getting a little bit funny, thinking, oh my God, what's going on with me? I wasn't feeling good, not myself. But then, the raw food definitely helped to really knock that on the head. And also it helped me with the stress that I was going through with my dad dying. So to cut a long story short, he ended up, we split up, but he ended up going back to cook food, and I was the one staying on raw because I was like convinced. It was like, wow.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I feel better than I ever have felt.
Yeah.
And I always felt fairly good after healing myself, but this was a different level.
Yeah.
Different level. And then, like, when he left, it was more a spiritual journey too. It started to really change my vibration, my frequency, my relationship with my environment. Everything from eating differently started to change. And I recommend it highly enough, although it definitely does need some nutting out.
So at that point you were still doing a more gourmet kind of approach, weren't you?
Yes, I was. Yeah.
So
and I think you do need to go through those transitional times for sure.
Right, okay. And so then at what point did you start to shift into a more of a low-fat, raw vegan approach, such as what you do now?
It didn't take long because when he left, I guess what happened was I wasn't catering for him or anyone else.
Yeah.
I was just tuning into myself.
Yeah.
And my body was saying, you don't need that, you don't need this. And I was so used to observing my body and how it was reacting to food. And when I ate too many nuts, I could, feel something wasn't right. And so I just started eating more fruit, and making things much more simple. And then I met some fruitarian people and I read about it and I thought, wow, that's, that just seems so natural. So I just sort of like phased into more fruit.
Yeah.
And then I was, you could go further and further and further. Yeah. And now I'm just basically 80-10-10, I think you would classify it.
Yeah.
Where it's fruit all day and salad at night.
Yeah, yeah.
I own a few nuts now, seeds. I don't seem to need it.
Right.
But I can't say that that's good for everyone because you kind of have to go through this journey.
Yeah, and really learn what works with your body. Some people seem to need a little bit more fat. depending on where they live as well. I know that when I was up in Cairns for this Australian Fruit Festival, I just even I couldn't even really eat a lot of durian or avocado. Just my body was not handling the fats at all. So I can imagine living in a very hot climate like you live in, your body just naturally would be drawn to very low fat fruits, whereas, you know, I live in a pretty cold environment down here, so I can tend to crave more density. But that's really interesting. So do you eat avocados and coconuts and things like that?
I do at night time, you know, but not all the time, because, you know, when you're really getting more and more refined, you don't need that. And your body will tell you. And, you know, the other thing, Andrea, is that, you know, certain times of your life, you're under more stress. And so you might feel like more avocado. So you have to kind of go with that. As long as you can clarify whether or not it's an addiction or whether it's your body saying you need that. You know, so many people say, oh, my body's telling me this. But, you know, do they really know the difference between listening to an addiction or listening to what their body's saying? So, you know, there's all these other aspects toward eating raw that you do need to tune into.
And how would you, you know, if someone was struggling with that, how would you help them tune into that difference between whether it's really a physical need that they have or whether it's an emotional attachment that they have?
Yeah, well, I really recommend that people keep a journal and start writing down everything that they eat and how they feel that it affected them and what they were going through at that particular time.
Right.
Because it's really that, you know, it's that necessary if you are really serious. It's that necessary to be so introspective, you know, so that you really do know then what's triggered you. You know, there's all these emotional programs and these cultural programs and everything around us that we've developed and has created our belief systems. And so we need to recognise them. Most people don't even recognise their own belief systems. They don't recognise their own programs, where they've come from. You know, was that a family thing that made me think that I needed to eat this way? Is that a cultural thing? And to really not judge yourself, just observe it. Once you've observed it, then it's easy really to let go.
Yeah, and I think in many, many ways, keeping a journal like that is so much more important than calorie counting. And, you know, I mean, I have a history of emotional eating, and I've found that counting calories and tracking everything in that way has actually just really sent me insane. And I know a lot of people relate to that. But it's a very different thing writing down what you eat, because there's no judgment in that. It's just purely observing what you are eating and what the emotion is attached to that action, and then just, you know, being able to look over it and seeing where those emotions are coming from, and that will kind of give you a lead into aspects of your life that you're not happy with, that perhaps you might change, that sort of thing. So I think that's really, really good advice. Yeah, I mean, calorie counting you can only do it for a certain period of time. Anyway, I mean, at some point you've got to tune into how your body feels when you eat things, and I've found, you know, with calorie counting that it made me more detached from my body than actually tuned into it. So I really hear you there on that.
Yeah, calorie counting, you're going down the wrong track completely. Because you're not honouring who you are, you know, and it's a completely false structure of understanding your relationship to food. You know, you really have to come from the heart if you want to look after yourself and you want to tune into what's going on. Calorie counting is coming from the head, and tuning into your heart is the only way that you can change these belief systems and you can honour your body and yourself and your life and the planet. Otherwise, you're going down the wrong path, and you're entering that time of discipline, that harsh discipline. You know, like bodybuilding and all of that stuff, it's great. It's great to understand that you can actually do those things. But if you stay in that mindset, you're continually pushing and disciplining and counting calories and striving. You've got to learn to let go of that and live from the heart, you know. And it's when it becomes a better journey. It's just a beautiful journey of transformation. It's not like, I've got to get there. I've got to lose weight. I've got to beat this. It's not like that at all. Once you can let go of that, then it seems to give in, and then you start to flow.
And your body finds its natural shape and weight, and all of those things just come naturally rather than forcing it.
Exactly. I mean, this is a really funny thing. And when I was 100% raw on the gourmet, I lost so much weight I couldn't believe it. Yeah. And obviously you're detoxing, we know all of that when you first go raw. But doing body shaping and bodybuilding and all that sort of thing, one of the main issues is to maintain that muscle. And so I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be like this the rest of my life, you know. But then after a few years, and it is a few years, and particularly when I went to fruit, my body reshaped itself. I was just, the fruit, the high carbohydrates, it wasn't fat, it was just a different shape. You know, maintained the fullness. You know, I didn't go into that gaunt state. You got through all of those processes. That's just an amazing journey of transformation that you can just follow and just see how amazing your body is.
Very, very interesting, you know, that you had both of those experiences. I had a similar experience on the Gourmet Raw. I lost a huge amount of weight in a very short period of time. And I was really looking very underweight, and I found fruit has been, much more balancing in that way. Yeah. So, I'm just having a look at my questions. That's why I'm looking down slightly. Tell me about your experience with body shaping, and so you did that after you went raw. Is that right? You didn't?
No. I did that before I was raw.
Okay, yeah.
Because I went into that because I needed to, well, first of all, I was sick. As I said to you, I had Crohn's disease. I didn't realise it was Crohn's disease back then. It was so serious. And I never had any medical help. I knew that at some level, I'd created it myself. And I had this knowing that I knew that I could heal myself.
Yeah.
So that's the path I went down. And once that started getting back on track, part of the healing process was to go to the gym on a regular basis, even if I just went for 10 minutes, you know, I was so weak, but I just kept doing a little bit every day. And so I wasn't raw then at all. It was only raw when I came up to North Queensland, and only very recently, well, as I said, about 8 years ago. So, but the bodybuilding helped me to regain not only my health, but my confidence in myself. So I've been married twice. It was my second divorce, you know, and I just thought, wow, what's wrong with me? So you go through all these emotional issues as well. And so part of that was just a process, a part of my life to heal. But as the funny thing is, I've just maintained it because it just works so well, and it's something that you can do for the rest of your life. When you're older, you can still lift weights.
Yeah. So tell me about, I mean, you know, if someone is, if someone's wanting to tone up, what would be, you know, your best, what would be the way to go about it, do you think, for someone who's maybe new to weight training? Like maybe they are a runner, or they're doing more aerobic type fitness. Well, firstly, you know, why do you recommend it? And you know, what would be some good sort of first steps that someone can take?
Well, everybody's so different. And everybody has such different perspectives, and they're on this different path, you know. So the first thing is to ascertain the person themselves. You know, do they already exercise, or are they a complete, you know, couch potato? You know what I mean? So you can't give the same advice to all these different people. So say they were fairly fit, but maybe a bit flabby or not shaped or toned. And, the main thing is your food. I say to all my clients, first of all, it's your mind. The second of all is your food. And the third of all is your exercise. The exercise is just the topping,
Yeah.
Honestly, the gyms have got a lot to answer for because they were just trying to make money, and it's like, you must work hard, you must burn it off. No, don't create it in the first place. Don't create the fat in the first place.
Yeah.
So food is, number one is thinking. To believe that you can create whatever you want for your life and for the world. You need to have that real understanding and belief system set in place. The second thing is your food. You need to have a relationship with food that reflects your beliefs and what you want to create within your body and the world. And the third thing is the exercise. And I just maintain weight training is great because it's not aerobic, but it's anaerobic. I've kept fit on I walk and climb and trek and do all sorts of things as well. But, all those things add up to your cardio. But for weight training, for most women, as they get older, and men, their muscles, they lose their muscles. I think by the time you're 60 or 70, you've lost just about 70% of your muscle strength. And this is so important because you forget that you're getting older and you want to be able to be strong enough to just even get up out of your seat properly. I've had women come to me and they just want to be able to be strong enough because when they travel, they feel like perhaps they're not strong enough to keep balance when they're on a plane or in a boat or something like that. And I never even thought of that, but it's so true. You take it for granted. So it's balance, it's muscle tone, it's bone strength, bone density. You need to maintain the strength of your bones. You don't want to fall over and break your bones. And so by training regularly, you are, you're having that constantly, You're building it. In fact, I think this studies show that women post-menopause, by training 2 times a week with weights, they can actually increase their bone density. They don't just, keep it at the same. They actually increase it. And usually they're losing it.
So just 2 times a week. Are we talking like a 1 hour session each time, or?
Yeah, that's right. 2 hours a week.
Yeah.
So it's not a lot. And so we've got to change our perception about what weight training is. I mean, everyone thinks it's so, it's not like that at all. When you're doing it with the mindful way, which I teach, it's a muscle-mind connection. And you're actually really concentrating on feeling the muscle. And it responds so quickly. I mean, in 2 months' time, you can totally see a difference in your physique, in your muscles. And it's just 2 hours a week, and it's not that difficult.
And do you actually use free weights, or do you or stationary weights, or body weight exercises? What do you recommend for people?
I think everyone's different. Some people really like body weight exercises, and some people, like machines. But I always teach free weights because for me, free weights, and also body weight exercises, but free weights works all the ligaments. So when you're in a machine, you've got to go the way that the machine puts you. But when you're using dumbbells, all your ligaments and tendons are having to get into action, to support it properly. And so you've got to really, your brain is working differently as well. So, and you can do that at home so easy, just with a set of dumbbells and a bench. You can just, do a half an hour here and a half hour there or an hour.
Yeah. So you have a program that you teach. Do you have like an online program? I know you teach, classes and do private stuff where you live, but is there something that people can, that you can give them online?
Yeah. I have like a mini program. Okay. There's a beginner's program, and there's a where they can just do like a week where they can actually eat differently, and they can actually do a basic, learn an exercise every day, like an email every day for a week, so they can get a real basic understanding of how it is to combine, a transition to raw diet and to get the feel of using dumbbells and training and get into a routine. So that's just like a mini one, just like a taste of okay, if I can do that, maybe I can do something else, you know.
Mm.
And then online I've got like the full program that is I think it's 8 weeks. Yeah, 8 weeks.
Okay.
And that's like video exercises for 8 weeks. So when you've done the mini one, you might say, right, that's it, I can do this. I'm sure I can do this.
Yeah.
So that's the 2 months, and you can get the journal, which is 2 months, and it's got 2 months program. You don't have to work it out; it's all there, and all the photos are there, the videos are there.
Yeah.
So, it's as easy as I can make it, but it just comes back to people's determination or what they want to achieve.
Yeah, and would there be some equipment that they'd need to get if they were to do that 8-week or that 7-day program?
Yeah, they need to have just a couple of sets of dumbbells.
Yeah, so
and
different weights.
Yeah, little weights. Because it's amazing how strong you get quickly.
Mm.
You are, but within a couple of weeks you go, wow, I can do that.
Yeah.
But you don't want to go too fast, too quick. But you also need a bench, and that is like a flat bench that can sit up, into an incline as well. And they're about $100, I suppose. And they're really handy to have at home. And that way you can do all your exercises just on a weight bench. Not the big ones like a bench press, where just a little seat, like a bench seat.
Okay.
You can see it online, and that's a lot of investment, really. And what I like to do is to empower people to be able to do it at home or at the gym, so that they've got the knowledge.
Yeah.
Once they have the knowledge, it's like with the food. Once you've got the knowledge, once you've invested the time to really understand it and really learn it properly, then you can integrate it into your life with, according to your lifestyle, how it changes. If you're just locked into someone else's way or someone else's program or a personal trainer for the rest of your life, you're not thinking about it, you're not tuning into it. So what I like to do is help people to work that out themselves, and that way they've got the keys to,
absolutely.
The longevity of it all.
Because that's the problem, so many people buy a new program, they do it for 6 weeks, and then it goes under the bed with all the other bits and pieces that they bought. So that sounds like a really empowering kind of process. And so how do people find that? You've got a website called, is it mindfulbodybalance.com?
Yeah, mindfulbodybalance.com.
Okay, mindfulbodybalance.com. Okay, and if they go there, they'll be able to see the 7-day program and where they can do that?
Yeah, it's all there. It's all there.
Cool.
It's a bit of a gist of everything.
Yeah.
I'm just a little bit different to a lot of others because I incorporate that body, mind, and heart approach. And I think that's the thing that stands out. It's, people who are just mucking around, they wouldn't be bothered with me. I'm really, I'm a Scorpio. It's the deep and meaningful thing.
So am I.
No fluff, no shows, just right in.
Yeah.
Because, it's about, it has to be purposeful, it has to really mean something to you. Otherwise, you're not going to do it, and it's not going to last.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
absolutely.
You have to approach it in a different way if you want it to be successful.
Yeah. And so the mindfulness part comes in with being mindful with every movement that you're doing. Is that what you do?
Yeah, that's a really good question because a lot of people don't understand the term mindfulness, Mindfulness is actually totally being in the moment with your body and what's going on in your thoughts and what's going on in your body. So I teach this muscle-mind connection. For instance, somebody who's doing a dumbbell curl, in the gym you see them talking with each other and just doing this movement. But with me, it's like I teach you how to do it properly, and then it's up to you if you want to muck around. But the thing is, you won't get any benefit at all.
Right.
I think the studies show that when you're using mindfulness, when you're training with weights, you add an extra 33% to your strength.
Wow, that's phenomenal.
Yeah. Well, you can actually even do it without moving your body. You can actually use your mind, and the muscles will react.
Yeah.
So if you then use your mind and your muscles at the same time, you get 33%
a
extra.
huge benefit. That's really interesting. That kind of reminds me of, you know, I suffered from insomnia for many years, and, you know, the way that I kind of stopped doing that was I would get out of bed in the middle of the night when I was in my head, and I would just do a bit of a yoga routine, and then I'd go back to bed. But it kind of got to the stage after a while where I actually didn't need to get out of bed. I could do the yoga routine in my head, and that was enough to put me back to sleep. It was really interesting. So, I completely hear you, and that's very interesting about the added benefit, I suppose.
I always say I've been saying to this guy who owns a gym in Cairns, I said, you wait, in a few years' time, you're going to have a room where people just go before they start exercising, and they're going to be doing it in their minds first. Right?
Yeah.
And then, because I teach heart math too, and that's a really amazing technique. I don't know if you know about heart math. It helps you to tune into your heart rate variability.
Yeah.
You actually learn how to not control it, but expand it, so that you can learn how to be in the flow, you know, so that your electromagnetic and everything is just all going into sync. All your systems start going into sync. So you learn how to breathe through your heart and send that energy out. And then when you start exercising, golfers are using it and everything now, because you can get monitors that actually monitor it. Wow. So you know when you're in sync, and you know when you're in this coherence state.
Yeah.
And then you exercise, or then you play golf, or then you make an executive decision, right?
Yeah. It's like it puts you into the zone, and actually it tells you when you're in the zone and when you're at the peak kind of time to exercise. Wow, that's really interesting. It's been so lovely talking to you today, Kiah, and you know, some things that you've said, you know, particularly about the easy menopause, you know, that it was just a complete breeze going through that. And also because that's something I've suspected, you know, a lot of raw vegans I know have had a similar experience, and I'm not you know, I guess I'm coming up to menopause sometime in the next 10 years, and so that's been sort of on the top of my mind. And I know I have a lot of you know, the older ladies who subscribe to my site, so I'm sure there'll be lots of people interested in that. And also the aspect of just getting that extra benefit from being mindful with your workout. Really, really interesting stuff. And so if people want to contact you, they can go through mindfulbodybalance.com and check out your programs and all that sort of stuff. And any kind of closing comments or anything like that today?
Well, I think the mindfulness thing, you know, like we hear a lot about it, you know, everyone's sort of on the bandwagon about it. Mindfulness is really just tuning into yourself and really examining your relationship with yourself and the environment around you. And so what you were saying, mindful of the exercise, it's also mindful of the food, you know, and it's not just about watching how many mouthfuls you chew. I was with a Buddhist nun once, and I did mindful eating and mindful walking, and oh my God, just, you know, it took so long. This is years ago. I just thought, wow. And so, you know, you have these ideas of what you think mindfulness is. But it really is going so deep into your heart and into your essence of honouring yourself. And so when you're exercising, you're honouring yourself. When you're eating, you're honouring yourself. And so it's an absolutely beautiful way of approaching life and giving back to yourself, basically. That's my close.
Gorgeous. You're such a gorgeous person, Kiah, and I can't believe we're both Scorpios. It's just,
of course.
Obviously. We've connected on that level as well. But thank you so much for taking the time with us today. And I look forward to chatting with you again very soon. If you like this video and interview and you'd like to hear more, please like, share and subscribe.